Tony Martignetti nonprofit radio coverage of the 2018 Nonprofit Technology Conference, coming to you from the Convention Center in New Orleans. This interview, like all our NTC interviews, is sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. My guests now are Janice Chan. She's a tech training specialist for development and alumni relations, maybe the tech training specialist. One of the only? Are you the only?
I'm a team of one.
Team of one. She is the tech training specialist in development and alumni relations for Johns Hopkins institutions. And Danielle Faulkner is donor engagement coordinator for Baltimore Community Foundation. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Pleasure to have you both. Thank you. Your topic is grant proposals for newbies, bootstrapping research and preparation. So that's perfect, actually, for our audience of over 12,000 small and mid-sized nonprofits, some of whom may not be doing grants, don't know how to get started on grants research. They don't know how to start putting, well, I was going to say paper to pen, but that's not done anymore, but filling out online forms, and that probably should be in the fundraising mix. You think, Danielle, for most organizations, at least be a consideration?
Definitely. It's a robust process, but once you get it handled, it's really easy to follow year after year. So if you can work it into your schedule, it's definitely worth going after.
Yes. Okay. Janice, anything you want to add to the motivation step?
I think it gets easier. The first one is always tough to figure out, and it gets easier as time goes on.
All right, so don't get discouraged by the difficulty of the first one?
Exactly.
Number 5 will be easier than number 1?
Exactly.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the research. How do you find out about grants that might be appropriate for you? Danielle.
Yeah, so for me, I look for free and easy sources.
We love free on nonprofit
Free
radio.
is always great.
Yes.
I will plug one, which is Foundation Center. They have a great website to find funding opportunities. They have, in Baltimore, if you go to a public library, you can actually access their account free. They're free full membership. Most libraries or institutions, educational institutions, have a membership through them, so that's a great resource. If you're looking for 990s, you want information about funders, so I use them a lot. Their office in D.C. is great because they're really, if you call, they're willing to help you, and they're all volunteer-based, or they have classes, webinars that are free. So I use that a lot in my day-to-day.
Foundation research, Foundation Center research you can do at any of their affiliated libraries throughout the country, right?
Exactly.
There are many. You don't have to be a subscriber to their. You certainly can be if you want to do it from your own desktop.
You won't get as many features, but the features that are offered through the free account are just as good.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other free resources that we can take advantage of besides the Foundation Center?
Sure. Grants.gov for any federal funding, if that's up your alley, and usually a lot of states will have a local council of grant makers or of foundations, community foundations, who might sort of have a consortium, and you can sort of go to one place and get, some of them even have a common form.
Okay. We love free resources. Anything besides maybe your community group? I know in New York there's New York Regional Association of Grant Makers, NIRAG. So there's that, as well as the Foundation Center. Any others?
We have in Baltimore. We have ABAG, which is another resource like a grant making.
NIRAG,
They're all the
same. All the ags.
I would say community foundations are a great way. Usually, most of their websites give a general opportunity list of what's going on for their fund holders. So in Baltimore, we have over 800 funds that come through our foundation. So that's a great source if you know your community foundation. Get in contact with them to see what's available and how they can help you.
Okay. Any more? I'll keep asking until you say there are no more.
Also, your state or local organization of a nonprofit associations. So Maryland Association of Nonprofit Organizations has some of those resources that you can, make an appointment to schedule to use as well.
Okay, for research. They have research. Mm-hmm. They have research resources also. Okay. Anything else?
I think that covers everything. The free and easy, the user-friendly ones that are a great start. They won't overwhelm people. Those are really good sources to use when you're first starting out.
Okay. Now, these are also for not only finding, grants, but doing your own research around foundations that may fund your work. These are all resources that
Exactly.
do that as well. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. What's the next step? So now we know where we should be applying. We're taking it step by step. Danielle, where should we go next?
Well, for me, after I've done all the research, I am a proponent of writing one grant, and then from there, outsourcing it and using it to write many grants.
Multi-purpose.
Exactly. I call it
repurpose
my Thanksgiving dinner of granting, if you will.
Okay.
One grant serves everyone. So that's where most of my work comes in. I would say gathering information that's pertinent to your organization. So that might be your mission statement, all your financial papers, the IRS things, working with your program team to make sure you have the right lingo and the language down to explain the project that you want funding for. Take some real time to gather that all in one location. So when you sit down and write, you don't have to go back and forth. I'm a really big component of doing all the hard work first, so then you can focus on the writing if that's not your strong point.
Okay.
So yeah.
There's also a point that's tangential to that, which is make sure you follow all the instructions.
Exactly. Yes.
Provide everything that's asked for. It doesn't really matter how burdensome you think it is.
Yes. If they say 12-point fonts on double, do it. It's not a suggestion.
Binder tabs, whatever.
What was that one, Janice?
Binder tabs.
Binder tabs.
They need to
okay.
be labeled a certain way. It's fine.
Okay.
Just do it.
Do it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. It's like, in that sense, it reminds me of dealing with a government bureaucracy. Just they may ask things that don't make sense to you,
Right.
but and it may not even make sense to the people who are asking for it. It may have been 20 years ago, but just do it.
Right. Right.
Just comply. You're asking for their support.
Right.
You got to comply.
Exactly.
I think.
Right. And I'd like to add a point to that too, right? Figuring out, like, one of the things we talked about in our session was having a go or no-go list, right? There's things that, there's some hoops that you're going to jump through and it's going to be worth it, but you also want to, there are going to be some things that maybe is a stretch too far for organizations, kind of taking you off mission, you're kind of drifting from things, so you want to make sure that that's really feasible and reasonable as well.
Okay, that's a very good point, especially in terms of mission. If
Exactly.
it's only sort of related to what you do,
Right.
they're going to read through that,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
you're probably going to be unsuccessful in the grant anyway, so why try to conform your work to what they're looking for? Better to stick with exactly what you do and find funders for that.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
You always look at the different angles of what it is that you do that might be appealing to that funder.
Yeah.
But it's still got to be at the end of the day what you're actually trying to accomplish.
You got to be on the same page. Okay. You talk about. I'm just drawing from what was in your session description. Interpreting instructions. Is that basically what we're talking about, or is there more?
That's pretty
more
much
to say
what
about?
Just
Okay.
read them. I would have, after you've written the actual grant, and this is way after, have someone not associated with your organization or maybe a coworker who's not in that process read the instructions and then read your grant, so they can look at it from a different eye and make sure you've hit all the targets. Because if you're in it and you're writing it, you might think you answered that question correctly, but in reality you didn't, and someone outside of your space will understand that. So I would definitely, if you have the time, try to get someone outside of your world to read it and the instructions as well. Yeah.
Anything, Janice, you want to add to?
I think also I like to start with the what's needed list when I go
Yeah.
through the instructions. Like, okay, before we can gather everything, make that checklist so that I don't lose something or I can get somebody else rolling on whatever I need their help with.
Okay. Last November, I hosted a panel at the Foundation Center. I've done a fair amount of speaking there. I'm not a grant writer or professional, but it was a panel of grantors, funders, and one nonprofit. And the subject matter was building a relationship with the institutions, even including at the application stage.
Right.
Some explicitly say no calls.
Right.
So
Don't call. Do not call.
Don't call. But others are more open to communication, or maybe if it's no calls, then we take emails.
Right.
But talk a little about that early stage where you're still rating, getting questions answered. Not being afraid. Anybody, either of you.
Well, I've never come across a call for a proposal that didn't have instructions on if you have questions during the process.
Okay, it's very
they
common.
always are usually upfront about that, which they prefer. Follow that to a T. And that's what I tell my freelance clients the same way. If you do have a question, let me go through that process for you. But don't magically run into that person or that funder. That's not really appropriate.
Yeah.
But follow their rules, just like the instructions for the grant. Follow the rules when it comes to that.
People see through that stuff.
Yeah. And it becomes all fake and phony, and you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want that. No one wants that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And if they don't, right? I mean, funders know that if you're a nonprofit, what you're looking for is funding, right? Like, that's already a known factor, right? You want to find out what it is that funder's hoping to achieve through their grant making, so that you can line that up. But I think also if they don't have explicit instructions about don't call, don't email, anything like that, right? It doesn't mean don't feel like you can't. If you're like, you know what, like our board member knows somebody on their board, let's just see if it would be okay to have a meeting to learn more and meet with their program officer to see, is this a good fit? Does it line up? Or, should we go looking elsewhere?
Is that right. Okay. How about tracking deadlines? Now make sure we go into a lot of detail because we have like 25 minutes together. So don't hold back. Don't hold out on nonprofit radio listeners.
Sure.
Deadlines. Yeah.
So deadlines. I'm one of those people who would put 2 weeks ahead of the actual deadline on my calendar. But I think that there are a lot more. When I did a lot of my grant writing, it was before a lot of project management tools were easier to use than they are. So I just put a lot of things in a spreadsheet and kind of project manage things that way. I think there are a lot more project management tools now, right, where you can put in a due date. It's going to trigger a reminder and send you an email, or when you log into that system, et cetera. But I think that is really key, because if you don't, similar to if you're applying for a job, right? If you don't follow the instructions, if you don't meet their time frames, you don't show that you're respectful of their time, they're going to be like, well, why am I? Exactly.
We had a midnight deadline.
It's an easy write-off.
We got in the next day.
Exactly.
We didn't say postmarked. We said received by.
Yeah.
You're going to be disqualified. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
And also building in buffer times.
So use the technology, first of all. Let the technology help you.
Yes.
Buffer times, You're not going to be able to devote a solid week to this, so don't leave 5 business days before the deadline to get started.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Be realistic about what you can do in the time frame. A lot of opportunities may pop up. It's rare with grants because cycles are pretty much the same. But be realistic. If you are a team of one or an office that's small, don't think you can pull off a whole grant in a time frame of a month, because that's a lot of work to do for one person if you're a small office. Some opportunities you have to wait for and just go after it next year. But be realistic about those deadlines, and don't think you can just write a grant overnight. I've had clients ask me that, and I always turn them down right away. No, you won't get my best work at that. So just be realistic about what you can produce and what your staff can take on.
That's also related to what we were just talking about in terms of asking questions of the foundation, or the funder. If the question is coming the day before the due date, that looks bad.
Exactly. Exactly.
Even you can't mask it.
Exactly.
They know their deadline. Again, you're going to be found out. So, all right, plan ahead. Leave yourself enough time. So even a month is really not enough time for a small shop.
I like to do at least 4 to 6 months, and that's if everything is the way it should be. But there are those rare occasions where something pops up, you can't miss out, you need it. That's where I would say if you've already written that one grant, you're prepared already. So you can dust it off, pull what you need from it, and you can apply to that one that pops up within a month. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't go under a month just because of what you have to produce if it's a brand new grant. And if they're asking for a lot of extra things that you don't have time to produce in a good manner.
I think the whether you're starting from scratch, if you're writing a grant for a new program that you haven't had to write one for before, right? A lot of stuff you can recycle, but some things you can't, or they're taking a very different tack on whatever it is you're doing. I think the other thing is the attachments, right? If they want their budget formatted a specific way, and your finance person doesn't have that time, right? So I think just being cognizant of that and being cognizant of what you're asking of your coworkers will also make the process smoother, because you're always I always work closely with the finance people, with our program staff, and the better relationships I had with them. Okay, let's be realistic about this. And also, is this realistic for me to ask for, or are there some adjustments that we should make that still meet what the funder is looking for, but that aren't going to be just a pain for everybody to actually implement if we get the grant.
Also, a good point too. You're going to be counting on other people.
Right. Exactly.
Another reason to allow enough time.
Exactly.
You don't want to make enemies in your office.
No.
You got enough opportunity to do that elsewhere.
Right, we're on the same team here.
Yeah.
Come on, let's.
Okay. Anything else around this discussion around deadlines? Don't
No,
hold out
I
on
think
us now.
that's-
Don't wait to submit an online application until the last day.
No.
Like I actually would block off time on my calendar because I've definitely like the day before submitted and like their website has gone down, you
no,
know, and we're
yes,
like, will
okay.
this count against us? We don't know. Maybe we should have submitted it earlier. And so then you end up panicking about it. You know, if I schedule it like at least 3 days in
Right.
advance for like an online submission, or you know maybe to like get it in the mail. Get it, you know, tracked.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth getting it tracked for that peace of mind. I once drove across town and actually dropped it off, but that's because I got there 20 minutes before that funder's office closed. Got there just in the nick of time.
Was that the day of?
It was the
That
day
the
of.
deadline
It was
day?
that was not ideal.
you're not
Don't do
proud of
that.
that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't let this happen to you. All right,
Exactly.
not a proud moment. Okay. All right. But thanks for sharing. That was very, preparing for online submissions. We just talked about that. So clearly, tips for online. We got more time to get. Now, when is your session? Have you
We
done
had it
already?
this morning.
Okay. Now you
Yeah.
spoke for an hour on this topic, didn't you?
We did. Yes.
Okay.
It
What?
was, it was
then,
quick. It was
Then
very.
just all right. Did you only? Now we've been together for 17 minutes, so
Oh, wow.
or
Okay.
like 16 minutes because we had a minute of prep. You got more. Don't hold out on us.
Well, a fun
just
fact
come out
about
with
me, I love reading 990s. That's if you know what those
All right.
are, they're
That's
the
IRS form 990.
Exactly.
Required by a lot of.
Um,
You're not talking about the EZ.
No.
You're
I'm
into
talking
the-
30
not the-
page and plus.
Not the postcard.
No,
Nerd
That's not
alert.
the NZ postcard. No.
No.
Okay.
I actually got started
Okay.
in high school with a nonprofit I was volunteering for. That's how we fundraised to come back because we were all volunteers. So I was taught at 16, 17 how to break them down, and I enjoy it now for fun.
So share some
It's
insider
weird.
tips. All right. So how to decipher, how to get
How to
value out of a
decipher.
990.
Good things to know. You can find out who you need to contact as far as who to invite to our events. If you're afraid that
So we're looking at the foundation 990s
you're looking at the
now.
Yes.
Okay.
So they have to list who is involved with their foundation. So I'm talking about their board, who their highest paid person is or persons.
Yeah, you have to disclose your 5
Exactly.
highest paid
Exactly.
employees on the 990. Okay.
I would say if you are not inviting those people to your events, you should. Because those are the people who have power clearly in that organization. If they don't know who you are and you're not on their radar, you should be. And that list, it verifies, hey, they're important to be on this form. I should probably know who they are and they should know who I am.
All right.
So that I always tell people, check that list out because websites aren't always updated quickly. And that's a yearly thing that the IRS form. Also, their disclosure of where they give money. People can say a lot of things, but what they report to the IRS has to be legit. So looking at how much they give to organizations that are like yours. So if you're, an arts organization and you find a 990 where they've given in the past, but their highest gift has been $2,000, I wouldn't go for them for $10,000. I would stay in that range of, okay, under $2,000. If it's a first time, maybe $1,000, but it gives you a good indication of what they're capable of giving. That's also looking at their salaries. If their executive director only makes $50,000 and you need that, probably shouldn't ask them for $50,000.
Yeah.
You should definitely.
These are excellent. Okay.
Little things like that where you can break that down in 990s. They're free. You don't have to. Everyone has to have one. Some of them are located on people's websites, so they're really easy to find.
Does GuideStar have foundation?
They do.
990s?
They
Oh,
do. Yes,
Okay, GuideStar is another one.
GuideStar has it. Foundation, of course, has it.
Attorney General, State.
ProPublica also
Yeah.
puts
ProPublica. Oh, really?
together a
ProPublica.
database
Yeah.
of
Okay, the
990
investigative
forms as
journalists?
well.
Oh,
Yeah,
do they?
yeah.
So little
Okay.
things like that I kind of check on when I do take on a freelance client and they say, oh, I want to go after this grant. I check out that foundation first and say, is this worth your time? Because they might have grand ideas of, oh, they'll give me this, when in reality, no, they're not. So it's a good way to double check yourself, and it's a free source, and they have to give it. So.
Something else that can happen is referrals from board members, but,
Right.
but not bona fide. Like just,
Right.
oh, I heard the Rockefeller Foundation just
right.
funded.
Yeah.
Great. They
But
don't-
let's see if
it's
that
not
actually
our-
happened,
It's
yeah.
not our work.
Yeah.
They have a lot of money at Rockefeller.
Right,
They have a lot of money at Gates too.
Exactly.
But everybody knows that.
Exactly.
And if they're not allied with what we're doing, then
Right.
what's the point?
Absolutely.
Right.
And sometimes you have to push back Otherwise, you're going to be spinning
Exactly.
your wheels needlessly, right?
Or if you find in Baltimore, we have certain family foundations where they give to similar organizations throughout the year. If you're new on the scene and saying, hey, is this a good opportunity or a good contact to have, you can find similar people who are doing your work and say, well, they've already got a contact with them. They might like me too. So it's a good way to say, like, are we on the same level? You know, will they even, like, welcome me in if they're already on that same mindset. So
Yeah.
I like to look at that too.
You
Okay.
know who your peers are.
Exactly. Know who your peers are going after so you can get a piece of that pie too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Those were excellent. Thank you, Danielle. The insider like pro tips for the 990.
It's a weird thing I like,
No,
but
no,
it's
absolutely.
definitely
I'm
Yeah.
glad somebody likes to look at them.
It's niche.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What else? We still got several minutes together. What did you share with
somebody
your audience?
that somebody had brought up, like they had this sort of weird program model, and anyhow, I think one of the things that's important to think about is, as much as we harp on following the instructions and following, you know, everything that they ask for the T, like what their contact preferences are, etc. Also, don't feel like you should be boxed in by that, right? So that's I think where working your network has the potential to open up, you know, other ideas. So like in terms of corporate funders, right? Corporations usually have both, like they might have a corporate foundation, but they also have marketing dollars that they give out of too, right? For slightly different reasons, right? But if you have that conversation with whoever's in charge of giving, right, or even if it's somebody in their corporate social responsibility department, right, you can have that conversation about, you know, does this here's what we're doing, here's some opportunities for your organization to get involved, you know, maybe if employee engagement is important to them, whatever it is, right? You're finding out what that angle is for what they're trying to achieve through their giving, right? Whether it's on the marketing event sponsorship side or they really like the grant, more formal grant making side, or some bridge of the combination of the two, right? And then also corporations, national corporations sometimes have like local community giving where that local store of, you know, say a large chain store, they might have, that store manager might have the ability to give out small grants, right? It's a good way to get your foot in the door and say like, hey, we work across the state, is it possible to get funding at that state level? So I think don't be afraid to sort of like figure out what is your foot in the door to start that conversation with them. And that's also where you can find out, okay, you know what, maybe this isn't really a good fit, but people move around too, right? And they remember you, like, if you've had a really good relationship with them, you've like always kept them updated, invited them to your events, right? See what we're doing. Even if you're not doing it right now, maybe you personally like would make, you know, like I've seen people like, you know, like, okay, my company isn't doing it right now, I'll make a small personal gift because I think you guys are doing great work, right? And those people have moved, and I've also seen them come back and say like, you know what, I'm at a different organization that now funds programs like yours.
Oh, excellent.
So, you know, like the more you can build those relationships and have those conversations to just get on people's radars, as Danny mentioned, the more people, you know, just like personal networking, the more people know what you're doing and see that impact it has, then I think that's more people can advocate for you.
As someone who's volunteered to read grants for review, a lot of the decisions come down to, do I know who this person is? Do I know who this grant is for? And it's a very shallow thing to say, like, well, I don't know who that is. Why give money? Even though they're doing great work, but it's a reality. If you're not on their radar, why would they take a chance on giving you this X amount of money? So you really do have to think about how you're engaging those people that you're going after, and don't just approach them when you need money. Approach them year-round so they know who you are and they feel comfortable giving you that amount of money.
And isn't that the same as what we do with individuals?
Yes,
we don't only come to them for money. We keep them engaged, we educate them, we invite them, and then, you know, ultimately there may very well be a solicitation for some, you know, for something. And Janice, your point is very good too in terms of corporate. You know, it's not only about money, but employee engagement, volunteer opportunities, often very important.
Right,
So,
or if they're opening headquarters in a new community and they don't have a relationship with that community, and you do, right? That's a good place to position yourself as well.
Okay. We still have another couple minutes left, like a minute and a half or so together. Danielle, anything?
I guess my 3 takeaways for writing, because that's my background.
Okay.
I studied playwriting, but this is how I get to write as well.
Interesting. Arts background.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's all over. It's weird. But no, I would definitely say win or lose, funded or not, I would send a thank you letter. I'm a big proponent of thank you letters. That's part of the follow-up. You never know when funding will become available.
Yeah.
So that little piece of thank you, regardless, will keep them engaged. I always say simple equals funded. So you might have a beautiful paragraph about everything you're doing, but when it gets down to it, it might be too much. So that goes back to the instructions. If they have a word limit, follow it. But also if you're getting too wordy in just what you're doing, just take it out. They really want to look at the numbers and the outcomes and how they're going to get that money back if there is an opportunity for that. So I look at that.
And then your last one, kind of brief.
My last one.
You said you had three takeaways.
Okay. No, I don't. Never mind.
Okay.
I'm blanking. Sorry.
All right. 2 pro tips.
Yeah, those are the two big
takeaways.
ones. Those are two big
Those
ones.
are two biggest
Those are
takeaways.
two big ones. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to leave it there.
Yes.
All right. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. They are Janice Chan, the technical training specialist in development and alumni relations for Johns Hopkins institutions, and Danielle Faulkner, donor engagement coordinator at Baltimore Community Foundation. It sounds like she's also a freelancer.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Girl Right. That's the freelance for arts funding in Baltimore City if you're looking for that.
Girl
Right.
WRITE.
Yep, like playwright.
Okay. Danielle, Janice, thanks so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Jenny.
It's Tony Martignetti, nonprofit radio coverage of 18NTC. Thank you for being with us. This interview sponsored by Network for Good, easy-to-use donor management and fundraising software for nonprofits. Thanks so much.